Hi everyone, welcome back. Apologies for missing a bit of time, a couple of weeks there in January. I'm a big tennis fan, and the Australian Open tennis is on in January, and so I had some social requirements to get into the city and see some tennis. Catch up with some friends as well, and saw some tennis live, and so that was fantastic. So got to see some famous faces and do that with some friends as well. So it was really good. Generally I'm a big tennis fan in general. I'm an ex-player and coach, and during the Oz Open every year in January, I get distracted for a little while, and I'm usually not really responsive to anything for a while. I'm usually in the city at Melbourne Park watching the tennis. So again, apologies for the delay in getting this next one through to you. Just one of those things that happens in January for me usually. So we should be good for the rest of the year, hopefully. I'm sure there's going to be stuff popping up here and there. That's just the way it goes. That's just life. I'll try and obviously stick to my schedule of hopefully weekly uploads. Still looking at Sundays to try and get new videos out to you guys. We'll see how things move through the year. This is the first one I'm doing in a series of videos I'm looking at doing. Kind of like just like a reaction review sort of thing of some stuff online. A couple of internet pages, maybe some articles, that sort of thing. From different places, not just from Wikipedia, as you can see here, just from various websites, and maybe blog posts as well, maybe some videos here and there, just analysing some content about loneliness and about solitude and aloneness that is online right now. So this is, I thought, the most logical place to start with the Wikipedia page for loneliness. So I've highlighted some stuff here, and we will run through some of these, and I'll just go on a bit of a rant and just give some reactions and some reviews of some of the stuff that's written here. I have skipped over various parts because it's too long. I couldn't read it all in one video. Also because they do tend to double up a bit on some of the stuff they've written. So I've just picked out some of the points I wanted to mention to you guys, and things that I think are worth mentioning. So yeah. Before I start, I also should give a bit of a shout out to the Reddit r/INFP community. I'm pretty active on there, and a little while ago there was some comments back and forward about offering a bit of support to my channel. So for those listeners that have come from Reddit r/INFP, thank you for being here, and hi to all of you. As I said, I'm pretty active on the community, so you'll often see me on there. I probably won't give away what my handle is right now, but at some stage we can probably visit that, I suppose. We'll see how it goes. So shout out to those guys. And the INFP channel on Reddit, I'm an INFP myself, and the Myers-Briggs personality type INFP is pretty prone to these sort of things happening, to loneliness and solitude. It's just something that is part of our personality type, hopefully these videos can support and help some of those guys, and of course everyone else as well. So I'll start with the page here. As I said, I've just highlighted some points, so I just wanted to run through some of these highlighted points and just give some thoughts on those. So first one, loneliness is an unpleasant emotional response to perceived isolation. Loneliness is also described as social pain, a psychological mechanism that motivates individuals to seek social connections. It is often associated with a perceived lack of connection and intimacy. Loneliness overlaps and yet is distinct from solitude, as we've touched on before. This is something that I've mentioned a few times, that there are different words for the state of being alone. Solitude, loneliness, aloneness, just being alone, all that sort of stuff. There's other words for it as well, of course, and so this is just describing that little difference here. So solitude is simply the state of being apart from others. Not everyone who experiences solitude feels lonely. As a subjective emotion, loneliness can be felt even when a person is surrounded by other people. And that's a point that I've brought up before, and a point that I think is very relevant. Loneliness is not just the state of being alone. It can be felt, as it says, when you are surrounded by other people, in groups of friends, with family, with people that are perceived to be close to you. It kind of comes from not feeling a strong connection to other people, to the people around you, and that's where it comes from. So these things are not dependent on the number of people around you. You can be a famous rock star and be on stage and 10,000 people watching you, and you can still feel lonely because you're the one person up on stage, playing a song or whatever, and 10,000 people sort of watching you, and so you sort of feel that sort of sense of being alone because you're just on stage by yourself, even with rock bands and so on. Like, if there's 4 or 5 guys up there on stage, like, it's the same thing. So yeah, I think you can see my point there. Second paragraph. Research has shown that loneliness is found throughout society, including among people in marriages, along with other strong relationships, and those with successful careers. Many people experience loneliness at some points in their lives, and some feel it often. It's very true. Loneliness is found to be be the highest amongst younger people. Did I read that right? Loneliness is found to be the highest among younger people, as, according to the BBC Loneliness Experiment, 40% of people within the age group 16 to 24 admit to feeling lonely, while the percentage of people who feel lonely above age 75 is around 27%. I'm not in either of those age groups. I'm in my 40s, but doesn't matter the age that you are. Like all the listeners listening to this right now, loneliness is something that can be experienced for different reasons all the way through life. Very young children can experience it all the way through to the elderly. So it's not exclusive to younger people or older people. So, and there's usually different reasons for it, of course. So they go into causes here. As I said, I've skipped over a few bits and pieces. Some of this stuff is touched on further down as well, and some of it I just didn't want to go into much detail at this stage. So picking out some of these points here, the first cause is as existential. So loneliness has been viewed as a universal condition which, at least to a moderate extent, is felt by everyone. And I think that's quite true. Even the most extroverted people can feel loneliness at times, can be lonely. I've known people that are very, very extroverted, very, very social, and then they go home to an empty house, just them living by themselves, and they really struggle with it. It's just, it's a different mindset, like an introvert versus an extrovert. Introverts are quite comfortable and happy in their own space, on their own. Extroverts are kind of the opposite of that. So yeah. I mentioned or highlighted here Thomas Wolfe's 1930s essay "God's Lonely Man." I did find it online, so I've got a link to it in the description as well if you wanted to read that. It's an early discussion. Thomas Wolfe, you can see a picture of him here as well. It's an early discussion of loneliness and how it affected him directly. He considered himself one of the most lonely people of all time. I'm not sure if that's entirely true, but there's no real scale for that. But anyway, so he explored it in this essay called "God's Lonely Man." So I did find it. I think it's the full text. Not too sure, but I'll put it in the description anyway if you wanted to read it. So I've also highlighted here, while agreeing that loneliness alleviation can be a good thing, those who take the existential view tend to doubt such efforts can ever be fully successful, seeing some level of loneliness as both unavoidable and even beneficial, as it can help people appreciate the joy of living. That might be something that you have all experienced yourself. After periods of being alone quite a lot, going out and seeing a friend or seeing a family member or seeing someone that you know in general can be really nice. And I've for me personally, I get really excited by going to see friends, not just because I like them, also just because I get to go out and socialize and be around some people here and there. It's just a fun thing to do, and I feel that even when I have a large friend group, I have a number of friends in my life, so I'm not completely isolated. But seeing really good friends is really helpful to kind of alleviate, as I said, that sort of that feeling. And they mentioned beneficial there, even beneficial. There are plenty of reasons why it is beneficial to be alone. And that's something I've been drilling into these videos for the first few, and I will continue to do that. Cultural. So culture is discussed as a cause of loneliness in two senses. Migrants can experience loneliness due to missing their home culture, which is very true. Australia is a very multicultural society, very multicultural country. I know that America is the same way. Canada's the same way. Like a lot of Western first world countries are the same way. A lot of people from poorer countries tend to come towards those first world countries. So you do get a lot of migration into those countries. So, but having said that, adjusting to a new society would be very difficult, I think. I've seen some of it firsthand. Some of the African communities in Australia, they're sort of more the new wave of sort of immigrants that have come to Australia in the last maybe 10, 15 years. And that adaptation it's challenging, and I feel for those guys, and girls, of course. Culture is also seen as a cause of loneliness in the sense that Western culture may have been contributing to loneliness ever since the Enlightenment began to favour individualism over old communal values. Yes, very true. Shall I add to that? Yeah, why not? It's mentioned further down about the internet age, our current age that we're in right now, and the reason why you're listening to this video right now. It has contributed to this epidemic that we're going through, this loneliness epidemic, and this kind of splitting of society and that sort of thing right now. So, there's a lot more community in past decades and centuries, and that's something that is certainly contributing to the current situation for us. So, lack of meaningful relationships. For many people, the family of origin did not offer the trust-building relationships needed to build a reference that lasts a lifetime. How shall I put this? The early years of someone's life can really affect how the rest of their life works out. Therapy can also help to work through some of those issues. But certainly, how you're raised and the family around you as a young person can definitely have an impact on the success that you have as a person going forward. So, this impacts the ability of individuals to know themselves, to value themselves, and to relate to others, or do so with great difficulty. So, same thing again there, really. Relationship loss. Loneliness is a very common, though often temporary, consequence of a relationship breakup or bereavement. That's just a consequence, as they say, a direct result of of a relationship breakup. Keep in mind though that these, as it says, temporary. This is a temporary reason for feeling lonely. It's not really a long-term. Well, it depends. I guess depends how single you are, how long you're single afterwards, or how much you isolate yourself after a breakup. But it is more of a temporary situation with a relationship loss. Situational. Mark Twain, picture of him there. Mark Twain's pretty cool. So he says, "Be good and you will be lonesome." So he was a real believer in loneliness, or in solitude, I suppose I should say. An extroverted person who is highly social is more likely to feel lonely if they are living somewhere with a low population density with fewer people for them to interact with. So that sort of touched on the extroversion that I mentioned before, and how extroverted people can feel that loneliness. In this example, especially if they're in a small town somewhere, or a place that's a long way from the nearest town, that can be a real issue for them. So that could be someone listening here. Self-perpetuating. I just highlighted a small section of this. Maladaptive social cognition, such as hypervigilance and social awareness. You can get trapped in a bit of a spiral of thinking the same stuff and sort of making it maybe overthinking perhaps, and making it harder for yourself to actually get out there and socialize. So that's kind of what it's saying there, really. Social contagion. So these other friends now become lonelier too, leading to a ripple effect of loneliness. This is talking about how if you feel lonely and communicate that to your friends, it can then expand and become more of a wider sort of issue for all your friend group. However, studies have, however, found that this contagion effect is not consistent, and that makes sense to me, because it really, everyone is their own person, and what your friend is going through doesn't necessarily mean that you're going through the same thing, or that you will go through the same thing. So yeah, don't look at that and go, I shouldn't be talking to my friends about how I'm feeling, because then it might affect them as well. They are their own person, and it's up to them to call it out. If they're having trouble being there for you, that's up to them to sort of say, to step up and say it. It's an assumption. You can't make the assumption that they're struggling with it. So I would say that that's probably a very small concern, really. The internet. Is this the same section? Yeah, it is. The internet. So studies have tended to find that a moderate correlation between extensive internet use and loneliness. The displacement hypothesis holds that some people choose to withdraw from real-world social interactions so they can have more time for the internet. That, to me, would be a bit of an issue. Look, I myself have had times when I rely on social media for a lot of my social interaction. Having said that, I still always prefer to go out and get some real world interaction, rather than I probably would never choose to spend time online versus going out and doing actual real world stuff. That's something that, I guess, they're saying it here, so I guess it does happen. I can imagine how it could happen, especially things like online gaming. I know that there's a social aspect to online gaming, and that you can make friends in online games and you can spend a lot of time in there. I think it's something that we probably need to explore at some stage, and that's, it's, like, you do get your social interaction from the internet as well, but it really should be a supplementary, like it's sort of on top of the stuff that you do in person. So that's really the aim, I think, here. So the last little section here, others have found internet use can have a significant positive effect on reducing loneliness. The authors of meta-studies and reviews from about 2015 and later have tended to argue that there is a bidirectional causal relationship, that's a hard phrase to say, between loneliness and internet use. Excessive use, especially if passive, can increase loneliness. Yeah, especially if passive, yes, absolutely. If you're just sitting reading web pages, and I think that's partially why I also encourage us to start a community here. Hopefully we can start getting some comments in the videos and getting some discussion happening back and forward, because I would ideally, in an ideal world, and hopefully this is going to happen in the next however long, I'd want this to be an interactive place, not just sit and listen to me waffle on for a while, you know. So while moderate use, especially by users who engage with others rather than just to passively consume content, can increase social connection and reduce loneliness. So that's the aim here, part of it. Genetics, smaller early studies had estimated that loneliness may be between 37 to 55% heritable, and it sort of goes on to say probably not really. I don't think genetics have a big part of it. I mean, having said that, my dad is lives alone now. My mum passed away, so my dad does live alone, and he's, I would say, very antisocial. But, and I'm getting into my personal stuff here, but I'll just quickly touch on it. Seeing my dad being really antisocial has actually made me a lot more social, because I don't want to end up in that situation where I have literally nothing to do with my life. You know, he doesn't do much with himself at all. So, yeah, I would want to avoid that situation for myself as much as possible. So, yeah. Typology, so types of loneliness pretty much. So social loneliness and emotional loneliness, two separate things. Social is basically not having the group around you, not having people around you, and emotional loneliness is just the feeling of it pretty much. So family loneliness here results when individuals feel like they lack close ties with family members. That is probably the situation that many of you are in. I myself am in that situation to an extent, and it's something that ideally friends can take away that sort of that need for the family closeness as well. That goes back to childhood stuff, and you know, if you've always had that lack of connection with your family, then it's going to be harder to establish that with other people in your life, you know, partners, friends, etc. But it is what it is, you know. Like you can essentially you can choose your family, so you don't have to have your like direct blood family. You can have other people in your life that you can choose to call family. I have that right now with some really close friends of mine, so it's the way it is. And that's probably something to aim for if you're struggling with the closeness in your family. That's something that we can explore in another video as well. Try and see some of your close friends as more family than your actual family. That's, you know, like there's various goals, of course. You know, you can try and heal the issues with your family, but you know, that's an option that exists. Romantic loneliness. Just highlight the last little section here. People in unstable or emotionally cold romantic partnerships can still feel romantic loneliness. Very true. Yeah. Nothing to add to that, I don't think. It's making good partner choices in relationships is really important. So. Lockdown loneliness, I've just highlighted that just briefly here. Obviously because of the COVID pandemic a few years ago, that was an issue for all of us, and we all adapted to that in different ways. And I'll definitely do a video about that at some stage, because it's something that affected most of the world pretty much, maybe all the world. Demarcation, so differences between feeling lonely and socially isolated. I'll try and read through this quickly if I can. There is a clear distinction between feeling lonely and being socially isolated. For example, a loner. Oh God. Loneliness is therefore a subjective yet multidimensional experience. If a person thinks they are lonely, then they are lonely. You can be lonely in solitude, in the middle of a crowd, as I mentioned before, and that will actually, if I just highlight that for a second, that sentence there is probably the topic for another video I'm going to make soon, because it is, I think, a really relevant point that needs to be expanded on. So we'll go into that in more detail in a video soon. What makes a person lonely is their perceived need for more social interaction, or a certain type of interaction that they don't currently get, basically. A person can be in the middle of a party and feel lonely. Conversely, one can be alone and not feel lonely. And that's, of course, the aim of this, is to kind of get that sort of vibe for us. Even though there's no one around, the person is not lonely because there is no desire for social interaction. Excuse me. There have also been suggestions that each person has their own optimal level of social interaction, which I think is very, very true. I was talking to a friend one time. How long is this video so far? 26 minutes. Alright, so we'll keep going for a bit longer. I'll try and power through a bit of this. I was talking to a friend one time, and they said, how often do you see, other friends? And I said, once every few weeks or something. And they said, isn't that, that's not very often. And I said, yeah, but it works for me. That's all I really need. So, and I've found that I don't need as much social interaction in general, as some other people that I know. And that's probably some of you guys as well. You don't always need, constant social interaction. It's just something you can get here and there that might be enough for you. So, yeah. So if you get too much or too little, it can lead to feelings of loneliness or overstimulation, which is very true. Solitude can have personal effects on individuals. I was talking about a study that increased feelings of loneliness also help to improve their cognitive state, such as improving concentration. Yeah, so there are positives to it as well. Once the alone time was over, people's moods tended to increase significantly. That might be something that you guys have experienced yourself. Once you've had a period of being alone for a while, seeing friends again really helps to boost your mood a lot, which I think is very true. So, loneliness as a human condition. This is, again, an existential sort of thought. I'm a big fan of existentialism and philosophy in general. So, if I see a mention of Sartre, or other philosophers, Sartre here, I should have highlighted that part actually. Sartre was an existentialist, and got a picture of him. There he is. He was an existential. It says here, one of the key figures in the philosophy of existentialism. So he really believed in that sort of simple life. Like, it is what it is. I'll do a video about existentialism at some stage. Who knows when? I've got too many videos planned now. But anyway, we'll keep moving forward. So the existentialist school of thought views individuality as the essence of being human. So basically, you are, if you think about your own birth, you are born alone, and you think about your future death, we're all going to get there, probably. You die alone, even when you are holding the hand of your partner or a close friend or a family member. As you go, everyone passes alone. So it is, and that's an existentialist kind of mindset. It is something that's very true, and something that really resonates with me, and I think resonates with probably a lot of people as well. Prevalence. I just highlighted these ones because I just wanted to sort of mention them briefly. Possibly over 5% of the population of the industrial countries experience loneliness at levels which are harmful to physical and mental health. Those scientists have expressed caution about these claims. So, it's really hard to quantify how many of the people feel lonely. They're saying over 5%. It's probably it probably is somewhat true, but who knows? It's really hard to tell. So, this one here says, in New Zealand, the 14 surveyed groups with the highest prevalence of loneliness most or all the time, in descending order, I'll just do a few of these. Disabled people, recent migrants, low-income households, unemployed, seniors, etc. So, if we take the top couple there, disabled people, the most common to feel lonely, recent migrants, low-income households. So, and unemployed, I think, is probably as important as well. You do get a lot of social interaction through work, so that's important as well. Which, in itself also might be the reason why we're looking at seniors. Excuse me. We're looking at seniors there as well. I mean, they're not working anymore, so that's a part of why being unemployed is also a challenge for socializing and feeling lonely. Again, studies have found inconsistent results. So I think the general, just to kind of summarize some of this thought about the studies that have been done, I wouldn't trust much of the studies right now. Everything is subjective. If you survey 4,000 people, you're going to get different results from everyone, and also depending on what day it is, like different people have different moods. So studies really are hard to kind of prove anything from, I think. So increasing prevalence. In the 21st century, loneliness has been widely reported as an increasing worldwide problem. A 2010 systematic review and meta-analysis stated that the modern way of life in industrialized countries is greatly reducing the quality of social relationships. Very true. This is touched on earlier on when we talked about the difference between historical societies versus current modern societies. It is quite different. So the empirical results of this study that was done indicate that 8% of the adult population in Europe experience frequent loneliness, and 20.8% experience social isolation. There are generally increasing numbers, and I think that's what I want to get at with this as well. I might skip over that Australian study there, but it basically says a similar thing. 8% up to 20% sort of thing. So it is increasing in general. It's why it's called an epidemic right now. It's why I'm doing these videos right now. It's a thing that is, I think it's a really big current challenge for us. Effects, transient. So this is obviously the effects of loneliness. Transient, I'll just quickly touch on this one. While unpleasant, temporary feelings of loneliness are sometimes experienced by almost everyone, they are not thought to cause long-term harm. So yeah, transient, temporary loneliness is not really an issue. It's just something that if you have the skills to deal with it, that's fantastic. If you don't, it's only a short-term thing, and hopefully you can sort of get through it. And of course, we're here for those people as well. But this is more focused on the long-term issues of it. Benefits. I just highlighted one thing here. In Western arts, there is a long belief that psychological hardship, including loneliness, can be a source of creativity. Yeah. I've felt that myself at times. It can be really hard to be creative with people around you, or with the wrong type of people around you, perhaps. People that might want to sort of criticize the art that you create more than support it. I think a lot of artists tend to sort of do stuff on their own, for good reason, I think. So that can be a reason for loneliness. But at the same time, if you're really into your art, if you're really busy working on a project, or an idea, you won't really feel the loneliness as much because you're just so focused on your own stuff that you're doing. So that's probably a good outlet essentially for loneliness. Physical health. Chronic loneliness can be a serious life-threatening health condition. It has been found to be strongly associated with an increased risk of cardiovascular disease, though direct causal links have yet to be firmly identified. People experiencing loneliness tend to have an increased incidence of high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and obesity. Loneliness has been shown to increase the concentration of cortisol levels in the body, and weaken the effects of dopamine. High cortisol levels can cause anxiety and depression and so on, other physical problems. I really believe that. I think loneliness is, if you let it get out of control, it can become a real issue physically. And this is again why, learning the skills to kind of deal with loneliness, or solitude, or isolation. I mentioned that word before. It's really important. Being able to handle and accept your situation and go, yes, this is where I'm at. This is the situation I'm in right now. It is what it is. That's going to help to reduce the physical toll it's taking on your body. With mentioning cortisol levels and that sort of thing here. Cortisol is a really big aspect of health, health going downhill. So again, it's not really about the loneliness itself, it's more about your reaction to it with this physical stuff. So just keep that in mind as well. Mental health. Loneliness has been linked with depression and is thus a risk factor for suicide. I mentioned in the last video that I'm not currently a qualified counsellor. I'm working towards it, but not quite there yet. So if you are feeling or having any thoughts of suicide, anything even close to that, please reach out to the appropriate people in your local area, because there are plenty of people, plenty of resources, helplines, chat lines. You can go online and do it on there. Just reach out, please, because it's not worth going down too much of a spiral with those sort of thoughts, because there are always ways out, always. While the long-term effects of extended periods of loneliness are little understood, it has been noted that people who are isolated or experience loneliness for a long period of time fall into an ontological crisis, where they are not sure if their own surroundings exist, or who they are, basically. That's, if you spend too much time alone, that can really, you can kind of get in your own head a lot. It is mentioned here, schizoid. You can get really sort of schizophrenic if it's really extreme. So, hopefully all of us can, before we reach that point, we can sort of get the right help that we need. In children, a lack of social connections is directly linked to several forms of antisocial and self-destructive behavior. So children experience the same stuff. Pain, depression, and fatigue function as a symptom cluster and thus may share common risk factors. As I said before, physical, where the cortisol one was, wherever that is, back here somewhere. Yeah, high cortisol levels. Physical, like mental health issues can manifest as physical issues as well. So just keep that in mind, that, sometimes if you're having physical issues with something, it can be actually related to your mental health, or, the anxiety that you're feeling about something. Suicide, I mentioned that before. Loneliness can cause suicidal thoughts and attempts at the actual act. Dr. Jeremy Noble writes, you don't have to be a doctor to recognize the connection between loneliness and suicide. I would push back on that a little bit, because I've said this to everyone and to all my friends and to everyone that I know for a long time. I do believe that there are interventions that you can take before you have to get to that, any thoughts about suicide or anything like that. There are things that can be done. The connection between loneliness and suicide, again, just to back up what I said up here in the little purple section here, the physical stuff, will, the physical effects of the anxiety that you feel from loneliness can make things worse and can lead towards more of those sort of thoughts, the suicidal thoughts. But if you can find ways of managing your reactions to your current situation, then you don't have to go into that sort of area where you're starting to look at, ending yourself. It really is just a case of learn to accept your situation, learn to experience what you're experiencing, and to be comfortable with it, and and just be okay with where you're at, and just find those methods for dealing with what you're dealing with right now. And again, that's what we're doing here. So hopefully this is going to help. Look, even if I do 300 videos on this channel, if it helps one person, that's worth it for me. So we'll keep working on it. A common theme among children and young adults dealing with feelings of loneliness is that they didn't know help was available or where to get help. Loneliness to them is a source of shame, and so that's another video topic, really. Because as I said before, with the stuff relating to suicide and those sort of thoughts, help is available. There are always people, there are always groups, communities, people around that will be able to help you deal with this sort of stuff. So just keep that in mind. You don't have to do this alone. There are plenty of people around. Again, helplines, chat lines, help groups. If you want to go to actual in-person groups, there's plenty of that stuff around. Even if you're in a rural area, regional area, there are ways of reaching out if you need it. So and don't feel shame about it. We'll get into that as we go forward, because that's another whole video topic, really. Society level. Realizing this video is getting a bit long, but we'll try and wrap it up quickly. Society level. Hannah Arendt was the first to discuss the link between loneliness and the politics of intolerance. That one might be best for another video as well, because it's not really something I want to go into too much. I don't want to get into the politics of, side of things that much, but I guess to touch on it really quickly, politics of intolerance will tend to push people back into their shells, kind of thing. So if you're if you're making slow tentative steps out into the world, and then people put rules, like politicians put rules in place that make it more challenging for you to get out and do stuff, or more challenging for you to feel comfortable in society, then a percentage of people are going to go back into their shells, and not want to try and put themselves out there as much. So that can be an issue in itself. I don't know if we'll go into too much detail on that, but if it's an issue for anyone here, feel free to mention it in the comments and we can elaborate a bit further. It's very hot in Melbourne today, so I'm drinking a bit of water in between here just to keep my mouth kind of moist. Relief. So sort of obviously solutions for loneliness. Loneliness is the first negative condition identified in the Bible, with the book of Genesis showing God creating a companion for man to relieve loneliness. So woman was the first companion of man in the Bible. Starting in the 1900s and especially in the 21st century, efforts explicitly aiming to alleviate loneliness became much more common. Yes. With loneliness being a complex condition, there is no single method that can consistently alleviate it for different individuals. Many different approaches are used. And that's something that I think that draws me to therapy. It draws me towards being a therapist. Over the next few years, I'll hopefully get there. It is such a complex condition. And again, this is why I think I can probably do 1,000 videos on this channel about this topic. It's such a complex thing. isolation, loneliness, being alone, all these topics that I keep mentioning, they're all very complex, and this is something that, we'll try and get into more. Medical treatment. So this talks, just briefly, I'll mention it, antidepressants, therapy, and I found this interesting. A UK survey found that 3/4 of doctors believe that between 1 to 5 patients visited them every day, mainly out of loneliness. I mean, that's crazy. They say believe that, so it's not actually evidence proof kind of thing, but these doctors are probably, they're smart people, so they probably recognize that there's people that are lonely out there and just going to a doctor to talk to someone about how they're feeling. It's challenging. NGO and community-led. So along with growing awareness of the problem of loneliness, community-led projects explicitly aiming for its relief became more common in the latter half of the 20th century, with still more starting up in the 21st. So, it's becoming a common issue, becoming a well-known issue, and people are seeing it, and there are groups popping up here and there to try and address it. Pets. So pet therapy is another way of combating loneliness and depression, as they say. Beyond the companionship the animal itself provides, that there may also be increased opportunities for socializing with other pet owners. So if you have a dog, for example, and you go to a dog park, there's people there with their dogs as well, and that's where you can get some social interaction as well. Apart from just playing with your dog and taking it for a walk by yourself, you've also got people there that are also dog owners or dog enthusiasts, I suppose, and they'll be able to talk to you as well, and that's another source of social interaction. So it's a good thing. Definitely think about a pet. It's a good option. Technology. I might try and just summarize this one. I found this one interesting. Records exist of early telephones being presented as a way for isolated farmers to reduce loneliness. So they wanted to install telephones in farmers' houses to reduce loneliness. That's pretty cool. Publication in 2017. Yeah, so technology solutions are developing right now, basically. So solutions that have become available since 2017 tend to fall under 4 different approaches. Mindfulness apps, apps that warn users when they're spending too much time online, or, according to my video, recording too long of a video. Apps that help people connect with others, including real-life meetups, and AI technologies, which is obviously a future development right now. So Edward Satcher's Fable Studio was one AI sort of thing that's being developed right now. It was inspired by the Joy character in Blade Runner 2049. So digital and AI partners. Look, it's a thing right now. It's a thing. Something that we will talk about going forward. I think probably the ultimate goal is really to actually have real life people around you rather than an AI creation, but they are there for people that maybe feel more comfortable doing that. But we'll touch on that as well. How much more we got here? No, not much more. Let's do this. Effectiveness of digital technology interventions. Now, it does say here that 2021 review did say that there's no evidence supporting that digital technology interventions actually work in older adults from 73 to 78 years of age. I think older people have trouble adapting to new technology, and so therefore it is harder for them to embrace social media and to embrace like social forums and that sort of thing online. So, and having said that, if anyone that's listening in that age group or older, that's not saying that it's not possible to do it. And congratulations if you're so flexible still mentally that you've adapted to all the different forms of the internet that you can use. It's a great thing. So give yourself a pat on the back for that one, because that's really good. Obviously as the generation goes forward, there'll be more people that have used the internet. Pretty much like most of the world has used the internet now. I would say there are certain pockets of the world that haven't used it still, where it's not common. But most people I think have used it now, and most people know what email is and what Facebook is and so on. So it's getting more and more common, and older people are adapting pretty well, I think, to it. So just one line about religion. In the 21st century, numerous religious organizations have begun to undertake efforts explicitly focusing on loneliness reduction. So there are church groups and that sort of thing that you can also get involved in, that will help with that situation as well. All right, let's wrap this up. Effectiveness. Professor Stella Mills has suggested that while social loneliness can be relatively easy to address with group activities, effective intervention against emotional loneliness can be more challenging. In-person stuff, actual social loneliness is easier to deal with than the emotional side of things. A 2010 meta-study compared the effectiveness of 4 interventions: improving social skills, enhancing social support, increasing opportunities for social interaction, and addressing abnormal social cognition. And all interventions were effective, except for maybe social skill training. There are different ways of doing this, and again, this is why I say that these studies are not really effective, because they it's subjective. Everyone's different, so you can't really say put everyone in one group and say this method works for these 600 people, so it should work for everyone. That's not true. Everyone has their own different ways of dealing with stuff and their own different ways of learning. There are 3 or 4 classic learning methods, talking about like reading versus being physically shown something, all these different learning methods. So people learn in different ways, basically. A 2018 overview of systematic reviews, that's like a meta review, concerning the effectiveness of loneliness interventions, found that generally there is little solid evidence that interventions are effective. What does it say here as well? I think the problem there again is what I just said. Studies are studies. That they are. It's saying that there's no evidence really that interventions are effective. I just think that everyone needs individual support and a customized individual way of helping out, basically. And so that's a lot of work. There's also self-education methods that people can use, and I'm hoping that I can get that. That's what I'm doing here, hopefully. Helping people to kind of realize their own situation and help themselves, basically, because there's only so many therapists in the world, there's only so many counselors in the world, there's only so many self-help, or there's only so many help methods out there. So self-help is a good way of doing it yourself, basically. It's like a DIY DIY solution for any for these issues. So, last point down here, history. You can read about this obviously on the web page itself, the Wikipedia page, Loneliness. For the general public, awareness was raised by the 1966 Beatles song Eleanor Rigby, bit of a classic, of course. Concern among the general public over loneliness increased in the decades since Eleanor Rigby's release. By 2018, government-backed anti-loneliness campaigns had been launched. It seems weird to think that there was one Beatles song, caused a lot of awareness and improvement in loneliness being addressed, but it is what it is. This is the power of music. So, there's topics down here: solitude, individualism. Pit of despair. That's a fun topic. So I'll go through some more websites, some more Wikipedia pages in future. But for now, I'm going to stop this video because it's really long. And I'll see you guys next Sunday. I mentioned before that I'll do solitude as another topic at some stage. Back up at the start here. Up we go. Hope it didn't make you guys dizzy just doing that. Solitude is another page that we'll go into at some stage, and the other ones as well, isolation, etc. So I won't keep you any longer. We'll finish off here. Hopefully that was interesting. Looking through some of these points on the loneliness page. Obviously, feel free to read this yourself. There's plenty of other stuff here that I skipped over just for time purposes. Plenty of other stuff, so you can read through it all yourself. And hopefully that was enlightening for you guys. As I said, this is the first in the series of reaction videos I'm going to do to different web pages and other things on the internet. I've got some more in mind right now. I've got some more topics I want to get to, and some more pages and videos that I'll have a look at going forward. I think this will probably be every couple of weeks. I'll probably do one of these. Probably a bit shorter than this one, because this one was a long one, because I guess the main topic of loneliness is a big topic, so there's plenty of stuff to read about here, and this is covering a very wide area, so I guess that justifies the length of the video. But if you've sat through it all, I really appreciate it. I hope you got something out of this, and I hope it's given you some stuff to think about. That's really the goal here. We'll finish up here. I'll be back next Sunday with another video. Again, like and subscribe. It does help the channel a lot, and it helps the community to grow as well. So, please get on board and reach out with some comments if you need to. Talk to you soon. Bye.